Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode 10.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
Hey, it's Adam Franklin from the Web Marketing That Works podcast, joined as always by my friend and business partner and co-host, Toby Jenkins. How are you, Tobes?
Good, thanks, Ads. Hi, everyone.
This is the show for people like you and like us who love marketing on the web. You'll be taken behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments where we look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. We confess what's failed and reveal the truth about what really works.
This show is brought to you, as always, by our new book, Web Marketing That Works, and specifically the bonus templates that go with it. So you can download those 33 free templates from bluewiremedia.com.au/book.
Now, I'd love to give a quick shout out to all the listeners that left us a 5-star review on iTunes. A big thanks to Tim Stanley, L. Samuels, Mike O'Hagan, Soul Smile, and the Mugsies. We really appreciate these reviews and ratings because it has a tremendous impact on our visibility on iTunes. And we're still lucky enough to be in the new and noteworthy and very often on the top business and marketing podcasts. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Okay, so the guest for today's show is Eric Keiles, and Toby actually had the pleasure of interviewing him. What can we expect today, Tobes?
Yeah, look, Eric was great. He's the co-founder of Square 2 Marketing, which is one of the world's largest inbound marketing agencies, and a HubSpot Platinum partner, and there's not too many of those. So it was really interesting to hear a few of his stories, and he tells and shares quite a few throughout the interview, which is awesome. One of the points that I really liked was his idea of, great stories at the strategic level, then cascading down into your tactics. And I thought that was, he dives into that early on. And then secondly, he actually goes into the simple process for creating the stories. And he brought up this new idea that I had never heard anyway, Ads, called edge crafting, which is all about how you make your business remarkable, which I found, again, really interesting. So as well as that, he talks, we also dive into some of their revenue department concepts, which is sort of mashing the marketing and the sales teams together. And so, yeah, it made for a fantastic interview. I'm really looking forward to sharing it with everyone.
All right, well, let's get the show underway, hey?
Thanks. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's my pleasure to introduce my friend and guest this morning, Eric Keiles. Eric is the co-founder and chief marketing officer at Square 2 Marketing, an inbound marketing agency based in Philadelphia in the States. It was named the HubSpot Partner Agency of the Year last year. Eric has co-written 2 books with Mike Lieberman, his business partner and friend. Reality Marketing Revolution was the first, and the second was Fire Your Sales Team Today. Eric and I first met in person in Boston at Inbound 2012, and we've been following their work at Square 2 Marketing for a fair while, so it was great to catch up and finally have a drink and meet in person there, Eric. So thanks so much for joining us on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Eric, if you wouldn't mind, could you give us a brief overview of Square 2 Marketing? What do you do, size of team, all of that, remote, office location, all of that sort of thing?
Sure. So Square 2 Marketing is a pure inbound marketing agency. We have about 40 employees located in Philadelphia. Some of our employees are remote, but most of them work in the home office. And our specialty is helping entrepreneurial companies, typically companies between $5 and $100 million in revenue, really implement their first marketing program. And the typical commonality between all of our clients are they're really good at what they do, but not so good at marketing. So we usually help them in 3 parts: strategy, execution, and outreach. And to date, we've been leveraging the HubSpot tool almost exclusively for our clients, and that's one of the things that we found much success with.
Awesome. That's great. And so what's your or Square Two's marketing philosophy then, Eric?
Well, I would think that we have a lot of phrases that fly around the office on a daily basis, but the most important one is always strategy before tactics. A lot of our inbound marketing brothers and sisters have wonderful agencies, but they focus a lot on the stuff, the content, doing blog posts and building websites and creating webinars and white papers, infographics. We do all of that as well, but we first start with creating a great strategy. And when you have a good story and you let that cascade down into some of the stuff, you get a lot better results and a more engaged audience. So that's definitely one of the most impactful things that we do with our clients.
Yeah, cool. We might actually dig into a bit more of that sort of story side of things, Eric, because I think that's really relevant for our audience. Have you ever had any major aha moments on your journey so far?
Absolutely. So, from the very beginning, we knew that having a good story helps our clients differentiate themselves from the competition. When you're looking at a bunch of competitors and they all kind of look the same, which one do you choose? Typically the cheapest one, because you can't tell the difference, so you might as well save some money. Once you start to differentiate, you stand apart from that sea of competitors and position yourself as the obvious choice to do business with. And when you have a good enough story, well, then you also get a few more pennies on each deal because people are willing to pay for a premium service or product. And if it's okay with you, Toby, I'll give you a quick story of how that strategy has helped one of our clients over the years.
Great.
So we have a client for many years now, and they sell the most unsexy product in the entire universe. They sell safety products. Boots and gloves and protective eyewear and hard hats, things like that. So when the father started the business about 20 years ago, he was all about how much stuff can I sell people? But when the daughter took over about 6 or 7 years ago and started to work with us, we started to have some of this conversation about strategy and specifically their story. And we came up with the rallying cry of everybody goes home safe tonight, meaning that every one of this customer's customers would have their employees go home safe from manufacturing plants and distribution warehouses. And from that rallying cry or that big story, we started to create a lot of content. A wonderful safety blog, safety videos, safety training, safety audits, safety. And what happened was this message really resonated with the target market. Now, it was a tough target market, plant managers and operations guys, tough guys that work in these plants. But they really felt that my client was sincere about their effort to help their people get home safe each night. And who would you rather do business with? Someone who wants to sell you something or someone who really wants to show you how to get everybody home safe each night? So just by taking the time to develop that story and let it cascade down into all the tactics, this company now has exploded in revenue over the last 4 or 5 years.
That's an awesome story. If we keep going back to the story piece. And so, that really attaches to, I guess, the emotion of that journey for the customer, right? As opposed to just selling boots.
Yeah, it's actually 2 parts. So number one, they understand your mission, so they get on board. But number 2, from a search engine optimization or a website conversion perspective, when you have a strong, remarkable message on your website, it immediately connects with someone and it doesn't allow them to hit that back button and go on to the next site. So, one of our clients is a tax advisory firm. There are 36 accountants, just like every other tax advisory firm. But after working with them on strategy, we position them as the tax warriors because they fight against the Internal Revenue Service on your behalf. And on their website, they have a samurai with a big sharp sword about to strike. And, that's an unusual website for an accounting firm. So when people come there, they're like, whoa, what's going on here? This is different. Let me go further, which obviously helps them download white papers and spend a lot of time on the website and obviously share what they see there because it's a different kind of story. So you're right. It does help in the emotional connection during the sales process, but it also helps connect people to your website and start that original conversation.
Yeah, it's a great way of looking at it. Looking for and I guess that's what's your process then, Eric, for our audience in terms of uncovering those stories? Because it sounds as though from those 2 examples you've given that they were embedded, in the culture, so to speak. The fighting the IR, Internal Revenue Service, or what have you. How do you uncover those stories within the organisations to then share them as a part of their marketing?
Yeah, it's actually a very simple process, and we wrote about it in our book, Reality Marketing Revolution. The first thing you do is you start with the target market. Who's the perfect client? And we try to profile that person. We typically ask our clients, who's your favorite customer? And they say Bill or Tom or Frank. And we say, wouldn't it be better if we could find more Bill, Toms, or Franks? And they're like, absolutely. So we create a persona or an avatar of that specific person. And then we try to uncover all their demographics, age 50, located within 10 miles of our business and so forth. And also their psychographics, tired of mistakes, tired of overruns, concerned about quality, all of those things that they really care about. After that, we try to uncover their deepest pains and problems. We know who we want to market to, but let's figure out what their problems are. And hear me now, there's no purchase that's ever made unless there's a problem that it solves. So we try to uncover that. Typically, the sales team helps us with that quite a bit. It's usually the first things that prospective clients say in the very first few minutes of a first sales call. I can't stand this. So once again, we uncover the pains. Now we double check to make sure that the solutions of the client match up with those pains. I mean, that seems kind of simple, but it really leads to the fourth and final step. How can we create solutions that are truly remarkable? Most of our clients have been around for a while, so they're already doing these interesting and remarkable things. The problem is they don't know how to tell the world about them. So we kind of challenge them a little bit to say, hey, how can we talk about this differently? If you typically provide 3-day service, how can we do it in 59 minutes? If we test our products, how can we create the testing lab and have our employees dressed in lab coats so that it really makes a splash when they're going out on site? So we challenge them, and that art is called edge crafting, pushing our clients all the way to the edge without being ridiculous, and then pulling back just a little bit so that we have the most remarkable solution. And if you want, Toby, I could tell you a great story about edge crafting.
Sure, yeah, why not?
So believe it or not, in the very conservative state of Utah here in the United States, there's a hair salon that men wait an hour to get their hair cut, and they spend over $50. When you go into the parking lot, you don't really see what's going on in the hair salon because they have the smoked windows. And when you get inside, you see leather couches and flat screen TVs with sports playing on it and free beer on tap. And the hairstylists are dressed in the fantasy outfits. You have a cheerleader, librarian. You guys, listeners, can fill in the rest. That hair salon does not need any marketing. They have such a remarkable story and such a remarkable solution that one guy tells his buddy, don't even think about it, get your hair cut here. But the essence of the story is that they didn't make the stylist topless because that's going over the edge. Now you have protests in the parking lot and people are changing city ordinances for no topless hair salons. So they took it all the way to the edge, and then they pulled back a little bit to make them in the fantasy outfits, and that's where they have a wildly successful business that requires literally zero marketing because it's all word of mouth. The question is, how do you challenge your company, or for our listeners today, how can you push your service so far to the edge that people go, wow, I got to get involved with that today? And at that point, it doesn't really matter what you charge because you're really providing a unique service.
That's a really interesting story there, Eric. No doubt about that. So, Eric, from here, we might just jump into some of your, the hands-on marketing experiments that you have either been involved with. It'd be great to hear about some Square 2 marketing, and what you've actually done yourselves as well, and what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, and have there been any dead set shockers. So we might start off, draw the examples from wherever you like, but have you got something that you feel has worked really well from a marketing standpoint, and let's get into the specifics of how you did it and why you did it.
Well, one of the things we uncovered pretty early on that it was really a surprise to us is the blend of inbound marketing and traditional outreach. Lots of the other agencies that are out there are very good at making content and making good websites and putting that content on the website. The problem is that most entrepreneurial companies don't have the patience to wait until their target market somehow discovers or finds this content. What we found early on is that it requires a little bit of old-fashioned elbow grease. You got to take that content and you got to find the places where the people are hanging out, and then place that content in front of them, whether it's in person at like a trade show or a conference, or online, like a LinkedIn user group or a guest blog post. By taking that last step, that extra effort to pick up the phone and call or drop somebody an email that says, I'd like to share the content, goes a long way for getting the right content in front of the right people. So that's one of the things we innovated, 5 or 6 years ago, that is really that secret sauce to getting that program up and running quickly. Mm-hmm. And that's a little unusual because it is traditional marketing. Calling up a blogger and saying, hey, I have a blog post I'd like to share with you. It's just, old-fashioned outreach, but it really, really works, especially when the content is good. So that's been a wonderful, wonderful add-on to our programs. From a bad point of view, we have tried several times to make the inbound marketing methodology work with B2C companies, and I mean business to consumer. The reason that inbound marketing is so effective for B2B customers is because it really touches on sales that have three characteristics: business to business, large engagement size, and a complex sale. Because when you have a longer sales cycle and a bigger deal and a complex sale, the content is really good for explaining exactly what you're trying to sell. It's good for validating that your company knows what they're doing. And of course, it helps people make their buying decision. The problem is translating that to a B2C. When I go in to get a chicken sandwich at a restaurant, I don't need a 20-page white paper to educate me on what I want to buy. And that has been really tough for us because we've come about it a couple different ways. Never with much success in small, fast engagement sizes because the content, it doesn't have enough time to take hold. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of B2C companies that use inbound marketing effectively. We have a very large client that does in-home elder care. Mom and dad are getting a little older and you want to send someone in a couple hours a day to watch out for them. That's a B2C purchase, but it also is something that requires a lot of trust and research. So it works nicely with inbound. Sure. But to do a restaurant or a retail store, we haven't been able to crack the code. That's been one of our biggest challenges and not one of our success stories, I'll be honest.
Oh, that's really interesting to hear. Because, certainly from our experience as well, the businesses that create advice has been one of the characteristics that we have found works really well with inbound because, they're in the headspace, I guess, of creating advice. And a lot of that advice can be then, and they do that day in, day out, and they're in that rhythm and of sharing expertise around, any given topic, really. And if that expertise can then be shared online, that's been one of the sort of characteristics that we've found has worked really well. So it's interesting to hear you say that. And I guess you don't need much advice for a chicken sandwich, as you say.
Yeah, and of course, because we as a company have a very good marketing program, I'm talking to a lot of these people. And I'd rather give them the right advice that, maybe public relations or event marketing or experiential marketing would be a better investment of their money. Even a sampling program, stand in front of your place and give out your delicious chicken sandwiches actually might be a higher return on investment than creating a lot of content. So we'll continue to play with that. But I know, Toby, you wanted me to, reveal some of the places we've had challenges with.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, it's really good to hear. And Eric, then the ugly then, have there been any absolute shockers?
Well, yeah. So this is an ongoing problem that has a good ending, and I don't want to be a spoiler alert. This ends okay, but in the beginning, we were starting to drive a lot of activity for our clients. More traffic to their website, more conversions, more sales opportunities, and we've been doing that for 11 years. And about 5 years ago, I get a call from one of our clients who I think is having a wonderful experience, and he says, "Eric, I love you, but you're fired." And I'm saying, how could we be fired? I just looked at your HubSpot report a few days ago, and you went from 30 leads a month to 100 leads a month. He says, you're right, absolutely, and thank you for doing that, but my revenue has not gone up. So I said to him, how could that be? You have to let me take a little look at what's going on at your place. So we go over there, and of course, he's allowing us a little bit of leeway before he fires us. And we start to realize the leads are coming in, the leads are good. Where is the problem? Well, the problem was the sales department. These people were used to dealing with 1 or 2 leads a week, and now they're dealing with 3 a day. And they weren't really salespeople. They were just people that at the company had grown up and they were now in the sales department just by luck. Well, that was a nightmare because all of these leads that we were generating were being wasted on people that didn't really know what to do with them. So we asked our client, hey, give us 30 days. We want to kind of go through your sales department, give them tips, help them understand where these leads are coming from and how to convert them. At the end of the day, the hard truth is that 3 out of the 6 people in their sales team could not handle a real sales job like that. And the hard recommendation is that they would make a change in personnel. But we learned a big lesson from that because just trusting that leads will come in and hoping that it'll drive revenue, that was a nightmare for us. And since then, we've extended our service to saying, once these leads come in, tell me how you handle them. And it actually stretches us as a company to figure out how we can then help salespeople close those leads, albeit with the support of marketing. But to have that call on an early, 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning to hear we were fired, that was quite a nightmare. But at the end of the day, we kind of took that lesson and ran with it.
Yeah, and look, actually, that sort of leads me quite nicely into one of the questions that I really wanted to ask, which was on your second book. Fire your sales team and hire them back as your revenue department. So was the name of your second book. And so if we can you sort of walk us through that concept of, how you guys are seeing the sales and marketing working so closely together?
Yes, absolutely. So on a very high level, the old model is completely broken. Because we have the internet now, there's really no reason for an old-fashioned salesperson. Nobody has to bang on the door or cold call anymore because the information that they used to be providing can all now be found on the internet. And you know as well as I do that with just a few keystrokes and a fresh Google search page, you can pretty much find anything you're looking for. So because this buyer behavior has changed, what do we do with all these old-fashioned sales guys? And I'm just saying guys, don't mean to be sexist, it's old-fashioned salespeople. Well, there's no place for them anymore because if you think about it, when someone tries to sell you something today, immediately your back is up because you're like, look, I don't need you to start selling me. I already have all the information. And the car industry, which is one of the last few to change, is really a great example of that. Everybody does all their research on the internet. They literally know exactly what car they want, what color, and what options they want. And they just have to go into the dealership to test drive it as a final validation and then do the paperwork. So all those people that are standing around in car dealers trying to sell things, they're just not needed anymore. And that's kind of the basis of our book. When you also look at a professional organization where it has a sales department and a marketing department, typically those two guys, they don't hang out together very nicely. Sales complains that the leads that the marketing department are generating are bad leads, and marketing complains that the sales department can't close all these great leads that they're generating, and at the end of the day, there's a fist fight in the parking lot. We suggest to remove that old-fashioned thinking and smash those two departments together into one and just call it the revenue department so that everybody in sales, everybody in marketing, everybody in sales support, everybody in marketing support works together to kind of pull on the rope in the same direction. And our main focus is revenue, not who can generate leads and who can close deals. And that's been quite refreshing. We did that ourselves about 7 or 8 years ago to amazing success. And every Friday we have our revenue department meeting. And in that room, there are certain salespeople and certain marketing people all working together. So the concept of fire your sales team today isn't really about firing people, but getting people to understand that leads are now coming in that are somewhat qualified and somewhat educated. So how do we guide those people on the process to making the final purchase? And that's really been the challenge, is to get people to think differently. Because, older salespeople, they work from a legacy perspective. It used to work 10 years ago. It used to work 15 years ago. It should still work today. And really, that's the wrong advice. So at the end of the day, if you think about a sales guide asking lots of questions and probing the customer to find out what the perfect solution is and co-creating that solution with them by asking questions and showing them examples and giving them content, at the end of the day, you don't have to sell anything. The deal kind of closes itself.
Yeah, it's a really, it is there's no doubt the buyer journey has changed dramatically. And so I just love that concept of a revenue department. I think it's a really cool way of framing it into something that's much more understandable, I think, as well. It really makes it cohesive. And I think the other part that I really like is that then marketing is also accountable to, the old marketing is also now accountable to revenue, which I think is a missing link in a lot of people's efforts, is that it doesn't necessarily get linked back to, well, is this generating the kinds of leads that I want, and are we then closing them, to really close that feedback loop. And
that couldn't be any more true. Everything today is quantifiable because of all this nice software we have. So there's no more just getting your name out there and hoping for a sale. You got to invest $1 in marketing and get back 10 in revenue, or it's not worth it.
Yeah, really interesting. Oh, that's cool. Thanks, Eric. Really appreciate you sharing that with us. So, Eric, we're coming towards the end here. So what I'd love to... One question for you is, who have you learned from, either in person, via their book, blogs, presentations? Who do you sort of follow in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, my two favorite people are one from sales and one from marketing. The one from marketing is very popular and everybody knows him, and his name is Seth Godin. And he wrote a whole bunch of books that are really popular, including my favorite, The Purple Cow, about how you can differentiate yourself from the competition. He has a wonderful blog that I read every single morning as soon as I wake up, which kind of fires me up for the day because he's a absolute genius when it comes to what's coming up ahead. How are people thinking, down the pike? So he's my favorite guy to learn from, without a doubt. From a sales perspective, a guy who's not quite as well known as Seth Godin, but perfectly impacted my life, is a guy by the name of Jeff Tull, T-H-U-L-L. And if you're involved in any kind of big sale, he wrote the definitive guide called Mastering the Complex Sale. And his methodology kind of flips selling on its ear. And a lot of that is the basis from which we formed our inbound marketing sales methodology as well. So if you get a chance, Mastering the Complex Sale literally changed my life in the way I think about marketing and sales as a combination. One other guy, because I'm from Philadelphia, who impacts me is Ben Franklin. If Ben Franklin could invent 20,000 different things and start the hospital, fire department, or whatever, I should be able to get off my butt and do a couple new things myself. So he's always an inspiration to me here in Philadelphia.
Oh, that's awesome. Good to hear. So, Eric, any final piece of advice or closing thoughts then for the audience?
Well, I think if you're in the audience and you're listening to all this stuff I've been throwing at you, the first thing is that you're very uncomfortable, because we've all grown up in a different world and the world is changing so fast that it does get a little scary. And my advice to most people that are considering changing their strategy and going with an inbound methodology or some of the sales changes that we talked about today requires a small leap of faith. And I think if you can make that leap of faith to immerse yourself in this new way, which we already agreed matches buyer behavior, your lift in revenue will be impactful in your company for years to come. But it definitely requires a small leap of faith.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. That's probably true, I think. And so finally then, Eric, thank you so much again for joining us on the show. How can listeners connect with you if they're keen to find out more about Square 2 marketing and all the philosophies that you've shared today?
Yeah, a couple different ways. Obviously, Square 2 Marketing, that's Square, the number 2, marketing.com, has tons of free content that you can check out and download, watch, and listen to. My business partner, Mike Lieberman, writes, I think, the best blog about inbound marketing ever. He literally posts something new every single morning. You should definitely subscribe to that. Little bite-sized chunks to help you think differently about inbound marketing. And our two books that Toby has referenced are really great resources. They're now available on your iPad or Kindle or Fire. And the first one is Reality Marketing Revolution, about generating leads. And the second one is Fire Your Sales Team Today, about closing leads. Any of those 4 resources will definitely get you thinking differently about your marketing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. I'll make sure that all of those resources are in the show notes for our listeners. But thank you to everyone for joining us today. And thanks again, Eric.
My pleasure. Good luck, everybody.
Wow, what an interview with Eric Keiles. Toby, thank you so much for inviting him onto the show.
Yeah, as well, thanks to Eric for joining us. I, again, had a great time interviewing Eric, and, it's really great to get his input and understanding of inbound, seeing as they've been doing it for so long. And I mean, to me, the really interesting piece and the takeaway is that inbound marketing, the secret sauce, as Eric shared on the show, was that it's about a bit of elbow grease and a bit of outreach and taking the content that you produce that will help your audience and putting it in front of them where they are in other places. And I just found that really interesting, that it's not just about creating a sort of content asset per se. It's also about taking it and being active in sharing it and getting it in front of other people. And that way, you know, you're not waiting around so long and hoping that people will find your content. You've got to be more proactive than that. So I thought it was a really great insight from Eric on that point.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really interesting. I'm so pleased you sort of said that stuff, because a lot of people do seem to get stuck and lose momentum in terms of getting traction for their inbound marketing efforts if they focus solely on what they're doing on their own sites. And by sites, I mean like their own blog and their own YouTube channel and their own social media platforms. But getting out there and doing guest blog posts or doing interviews on other people's blogs or podcasts or YouTube videos is, you know, it must, well, he's obviously explained that it can just fast track that time it takes to get traction for your own efforts. So thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And I'll just jump in there, ads, with one of our tools actually that's really relevant to that whole discussion around what do you do once you've posted content, and that is promote it. And, you know, jumping onto our tool, the content marketing promotion template is a really great way. And again, we'll leave that in the show notes for our listeners, but it will give people the ideas and understanding of what steps they can take once they hit publish on a blog post, for instance. You know, what needs to happen then to get people coming in to find that content and sharing it.
Cool. And if I could just add one other, whilst we're talking about Eric and Square 2 marketing, he really introduced us to this concept through his books that you've mentioned in the show, Reality Marketing Revolution, the idea of having low-risk offers and no-risk offers on your website. And I did just want to, I guess, attribute him to that realization for us. And by no-risk offers, we're talking about blog posts and YouTube videos and anything that is totally free and anonymous to interact with. And then you've got your low-risk offers where basically people are registering with their name and email address in order to access your more premium content. And we have used that idea and baked that into our content marketing sales funnel, which is a template again from our website, and we'll put that into the show notes. But thank you to Eric and Mike for the insights there from your books that helped us wrap our head around that whole notion of content you need to be publishing on your website.
Yeah, great point. So as always, the show is brought to you by Web Marketing That Works, the new book, and specifically the bonus 33 free templates that go with it, of which those are 2. You will find them over at bluewiremedia.com.au/book if you want to download those 33. The intent is always to deliver actionable advice, so please shoot us through your feedback or ask questions. We really welcome that. Let us know via email or Twitter. My email address is toby.jenkins@bluewiremedia.com.au or at Toby_Jenkins.
And my email address is adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au, and on Twitter it is Franklin_Adam. Now, if you enjoyed the show, and we really hope you did, we would love it if you left us an honest review on iTunes and also a rating. We will give a shout out to all the listeners that give us a 5-star review. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thanks very much, everyone.